Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Today we're going to study Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 51 through 53. Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto Dhrityatmanam Niyamya Cha Shabdadin Vishayam Styaktva Ragadeshau Vyudasya Cha Vivikta Sevi Lagvashi Yatavakaya Manasaha Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam Vairagyam Samupashritaha Ahankaram Balang Darpam Kaman Krodham Parigraham Vimuchya Nirmama Shanto Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Translation. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, and who controls the body and the tongue, and is always in trance and is detached, who is without false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and who does not accept material things, such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. This is a very wonderful description of the things that each one of us could work on to have an improvement, a very clear improvement on our spiritual life. Usually, spiritual life tends to be a little bit subjective, and well, it is totally subjective. So sometimes it's hard to understand where we are at in this ladder of spiritual progress. So this verse should help you a lot to understand, okay, well, I'm missing here, or I'm missing this other quality. And when you get these qualities together, which are not very easy to attain, then you will be very well situated to understand God. So let's go through them briefly. Giving up the objects of sense gratification. This should be not so difficult for someone who has experience, but for the beginner, stop smoking or stop eating meat. These things are completely going to disturb your mind to understand God. So one has to give up the objects of sense gratification. Although at the moment the person feels that, oh, this is so tasteful, I like smoking so much, or taking meat or whatever, it's intoxicating. So one must reject those objects. Then being freed from attachment and hatred. So why hate anyone? That concept is just totally inconceivable for a person practicing spiritual life. And attachment, well, if we are, for example, living in a place that we like very much, but that place is not favorable for spiritual life, then we should renounce that and not become attached to things. We should become attached to serving God, to being in a situation which is favorable towards serving God. That's why it says, one who lives in a secluded place. So I might have a very beautiful house in the city, but if that place cannot be purified or engaged in service, it's just too contaminated, too polluted, then one should not be attached, and then sell or whatever has to be done to change the situation, to be in a place that's pure. Attachment really is so painful. Who eats little and who controls the body and the tongue. So again, self-control. How good are you in controlling the senses? If your body says, oh, I want this, and then you see some object that is very appealing, but that won't make you any better human being or increase your love of God in any way, then why do it? The tongue especially is very demanding, And when one starts to control the tongue, even a little object of the senses that comes along, and the tongue is like, oh, I want this, I want this. And this is very detrimental to spiritual life. So one should learn to control the tongue, to not just speak whatever nonsense comes into the mind, but to talk about spiritual life, to talk about spiritual topics, about God and how to get out of this material world, how to help others, not just the weather and things that are irrelevant, of course, in a practical way. Always in trance and is detached, who is without false ego, false strength, false pride. So, false ego that I have, my body has to look beautiful all the time. But who is this body? This body is not me. The body is just a covering that we have, and it will last only 100 years. So if we spend too much time that, oh, look at my body, and oh, yes, my body is so beautiful, and all this taking care of the body too much, and that is exaggerating just to look good. All these things are false ego. Being too much identified with the body is always a trap, especially for women when they have children and like that. Even the spiritual condition is very, very bad for them, but they will be very attached. There's so many examples of attachment that stops the spiritual progress of a person. And many of the times it's the family life, because someone within the family wants to take to spiritual life, but all the other members are against. They're even atheists, or they don't even want to see or talk about God in any way. So the person being attached to the concept of family, they will say, no, I can't leave my family. This is it's my family. But who is this family? In 100 years from now, your family is going to be another completely different set of persons. And 100 years before, you had this family that you say, my family, didn't exist either. So these bodies come and go. They're like bubbles in the ocean. They come and go. So if we make our decisions and set our life based on the body, then it's not going to be very helpful towards spiritual life. Then there's false strength, false pride, lust, anger. So, of course, these things are totally undesirable. False pride is one very difficult for a lot of Westerners when we begin spiritual life. For example, a very simple thing to do is to offer obeisances to someone else. And immediately their response will be, I don't worship anyone. I don't offer obeisances to anyone. In India, for example, the obeisances is a very common thing, that one puts the head to the floor and the hands on the ground, and it's a sign of respect. But some people will just blow it up that you cannot worship anyone, and it's like, no, when you are respectful towards someone else, you bow. This is a very humble thing. But someone who's very full of pride, like there's so many stories in the scripture of kings that they would meet a great man, but they're not humble. They feel that, oh, I am the king, and I don't need to do these obeisances to anyone. I don't need to bow down to anyone. I am so powerful. This is false pride. Because the fact is that there are so many innumerable amount of people that are better than us in so many ways, that are more powerful, and there's always someone on top. So we should, instead of being all this full of pride, we should always be humble and offer obeisances to everyone, and of course to God. That is the false pride problem. Lust, anger, and who does not accept material things. So what does that mean, accept material things? It means that if there is some object that has no use whatsoever, that cannot be linked to serving God, one cannot find a way to do that, then why accept it? Just that material things means that there's something that I cannot use to serve God. So we definitely don't want that kind of thing. And some people, again, because of attachment or some idea of social status or whatever, will accept material things just to adapt to society. Things that is completely unnecessary. And the common example is when someone is, for example, very, very much trying to make everyone happy. That there's some disturbance, and instead of one saying, no, this is inappropriate, please turn this off, this is disturbing, this material in the radio is very common. Someone in the taxi will be playing the radio with all material music, and one should say, no, you should turn down the volume, this is material, this is not going to improve your life or my life or anyone's life. So one should not accept. Someone will think, no, I cannot tell the taxi, he has all the right to play the music that he wants. But no, it's this kind of diplomacy is not necessary. This is a material thing, and one should not accept material things. Instead, always reject material things and only accept those things which are favorable towards serving God. So if one sees oneself in all these qualities, then this is the process of self-realization, to understand what's bad within me, what can I change, what of these qualities I'm afflicted, and change them. If you have any comments or questions, please visit our website, thevedikway.org. Thank you. Hare Krishna.